Etsy shut down over 160,000 shops in 2023. And this year, I'm hearing that number could be double. Now, if you've dealt with this or you know someone who has, then you know the chances of Etsy telling you what policy you actually violated is very unlikely. So in this video, I'm going to go through all the reasons that your shop could be banned so that this doesn't happen to you. Now, according to Etsy's transparency report, a majority of the shops shut down in 2023 were because they violated either IP, which is copyright, they were selling prohibited items, or they broke the handmade policy rule. But these aren't the only reasons your shop could be permanently shut down. And in this video, I'm going to go over a list of tons of reasons on why your shop can be permanently banned. And many of these have never been mentioned before. So make sure you pay attention to this whole video so you don't end up creek without a paddle. Before I start, I want to remind everyone that we live in an e-commerce world where everything is always evolving. These changes happen without notice. So you have to stay on top of these constantly. Now with that said, we're going to start with the reasons Etsy gave for the 2023 suspensions. The first one is IP conflicts, which refers to copyright, trademark, and patent items. Now this is a big one because not only can Etsy shut you down for this, but the company or the designer who made that item can sue you for damages. This is something that you have to keep a close eye on and monitor with each decision and design that you launch, as I mentioned in this video. So before you list anything, you should go to uspto.gov to ensure the design or the keyword is not owned by anyone. When you search online, don't only look at just active. Even if they're deactivated or pending, I would still avoid these designs or keywords just to be safe. The company or designer can still file to get it reinstated, in which case that could result in your shop being closed or you being sued. The second was prohibited products. This consists of listing items that are forbidden to be posted on Etsy. And these don't only apply to just Etsy. These apply to Amazon, eBay, Walmart, and anywhere you sell online, really, outside of your own website. They are items such as drugs, alcohol, hazardous material, or hate-related content. Now, I know most of you probably aren't listing these things, so let's just move on to the next reason, which is violating the handmade policy. Now, this one had a lot of holes in it. The reason most of these shops were shut down was because of how the items were actually being listed. Some shops with items that were in fact handmade were unfortunately shut down. And in many cases, those shops were actually able to get reinstated. But that led to all those new options when creating a new listing, which I will go over in just a little bit. These options are very important, so make sure you stick around, because I plan to break down each one and show you exactly how to correctly list your items. First, I want to touch base on the lesser known reasons on why you can get suspended. Misrepresentation of shop information. This consists of providing false information about your shop, such as incorrect location or ownership details. Also, many of you probably don't know, but Etsy wants full transparency, which means if you own multiple shops, you're actually supposed to list those shops in your public profile. If your IP matches these other profiles and you don't have your shop information listed, you can actually be suspended. Next is spamming, which means excessively copying listings or using misleading tags or manipulating the search results to gain more views. Yes, that's a real thing. Next is poor service. This means a huge amount of negative feedback, failing to fulfill orders in a timely fashion, misleading consumers, not delivering orders, or having a high rate of order cancellations or disputes. Also, if you receive a ton of returns, this falls under the same category. The next one is overdue balances and multiple violations. Now, this one probably goes without saying, but I still want to make sure it's covered. If you don't pay your bill, you get suspended. It's that simple. So always make sure that the credit card on file is up to date. Now, recently Etsy has been sending emails about expired cards, but in the past, this was not always the case. And this led to a lot of issues and a lot of suspensions. As for multiple violations, if you receive any sort of notice like this, immediately remove any items violating that same policy. So make sure that you check all your other listings before you receive multiple violations. And if you need to, deactivate them until you have time to fix what needs to be changed. The last one, before we jump into how to properly list your item, is account association. This has to do with suspended shops being linked to your current shop. If your account is linked to another account that has been suspended, then your shop also may be shut down, especially if Etsy believes that you're connected in some way and trying to do some sort of fraud. And if this happens, it takes a lot to get your shop back. So make sure you don't jump on random Wi-Fi hotspots, because this is actually usually what causes that issue. Now let's jump into how to properly list your item and what options you should choose. I'm going to cover physical, POD, and digital. So anything that you're really selling. And like I said earlier, these selections are very important because if you choose the wrong one, you could potentially be suspended. So make sure you pay attention. When you click on new listing, the first thing to pop up is this box. If this option does not pop up, or you're working on a listing that you previously made, simply scroll down and just click Add Core Details. Once the pop-up is on the screen, select if your item is physical or digital. I'm going to start with digital products. If you have a POD or physical, you can skip a little ahead. I'm going to put the timestamp below. After selecting digital, you have to select who made it. Did you make it, or did another company make it for you? Now I'm going to select I did it because in most cases, you're making your own designs. From there, you have to select what is it? Is it a finished design? Even if this can be applied to a shirt, bag, or any other sort of item, then that still means it's finished. That selection is based on someone selling an item, which I'll discuss in just a second. Moving on, when was it made? If this item is custom, such as a drawing, illustration, or something similar, then you're going to select made to order. If this is something that's pre-made and you're just selling it, meaning that there's no modifications needed in order to be sold, then select when you made it. And then the last option is, how did you create this? Did you create it yourself, or did you have help from AI generators such as ChatGPT, Midjourney, Gemini, etc.? Now that we covered digital, let's jump into physical items. Start by selecting physical. From there, select who made it. If you made it, then select I did. If a member of your shop made it, select that option. And if another company or person made it, then you select that. This last option applies to you contracting someone making the item for you, such as Printify. Now here's where it gets tricky. If you selected I made it, you will see completely different options than someone who selects another company made it. So starting off, let's go with you made it. After selecting I made it, we're going to move on to what it is. Is this a finished item? Is it a supply for someone else to finish? Which one? After selecting that, then you select when was it made. If you're adding a design that needs to be modified before you actually create it, then you would choose made to order. If you are selling something that's already pre-made, then you're going to select when it was exactly made. After that, you will have to select one of the following. It's made from scratch, for example, a table or chair. It's assembled from purchased parts, such as jewelry or bracelets. It's an item my shop alters, like adding a design to a t-shirt or a mug. It's a curated set. Think bridal gift boxes. After selecting that, choose how the item is made. Now for this, you can select all that apply. Now, as interesting as this is, sewing machine is actually the first option. So even though you may consider this a machine, it's not according to Etsy. If you use a laser engraver, then you select machine. AI generator probably will not apply to any of this unless that's how you created your design. And the last option for you is that you don't use tools, which would be wild. I know this is a lot, but trust me, all this is important. So if you missed anything, please go back and watch that again. Now moving on, we're going to start talking about production partners. This applies to POD items. For this, I will select another company or person made the item. Now, if you notice, everything disappears. And I'm going to choose that it's a finished product and it's made to order. The reason I'm choosing made to order is because the item needs to actually be made. Once that is done, click Select Production Partners. If you do not already have a production partner set, then click Create a New Partner. You're going to add the production partner's name in the top field. If you're using Printify, you can just add Printify. I'll add a link in the description for those steps. For this, I'm just going to put ABC. Now you can toggle this to the off position if you don't want consumers to see who's actually producing this item for you. This is completely up to you. The next step is saying what the production partner does. For instance, if they make or ship the item, add that. From there, add the location, state, and country. Again, if you're using Printify as your supplier, the link in my description will lead you right to Printify with the exact information that you need to add. Continuing on, select why you are working with this partner. You have 3 options. Select whichever one best fits you. In most cases, if you're using a POD, you would select the first option. Next, what is your role in the design process? The options are, I design everything myself. I design it, but I get technical help. I collaborate with shop members. I have an idea and I work with independent designers. I collab with my production partner, or you work with an independent designer and you have authorization to use their work. This one is super important and where most people fall into issues. So make sure you select the correct one and the one that applies to you. In which case, I'm going to select I design everything, which is what I do. The last option is selecting the role of the production partner. Do they make a component and then you do the rest? Do they create the product and then you have to add something to it? Do they create the product and then you brand it, package it, and ship it yourself? Or do they do everything for you? Now, if you're using POD service like Printify, then you would just select that last option. And there you have it. Even though it seems simple, those last 2 questions are the most important. That leads to actually more deactivations than anything else. So make sure you select the correct one that applies to you before you proceed making your listing. And watch this back if you need any clarification. Also, leave me a comment if you're still confused. I hope that this video was helpful and provided you with a little more insight and understanding of the policies and how to ensure that your shop doesn't get suspended. If you have any questions, definitely leave me a comment. You know I love to hear from you. And thank you so much for watching. Talk to you soon.